means there is no faith that you believe in. What is faith? Is basically is to accept, people's testimony about certain things which is you didn't see, but you accept their testimony because you trust their argument or you trust them. That is faith.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that definition.
You don't agree? Okay. Can you please define me the faith system so I'll understand so we'll be on one page.
Sure. Okay, so
let's define the definitions first.
So faith is the idea of an acceptance of a truth, not necessarily based on merely evidence, but instead.
That's your definition, Alfred. You know that. But anyway, I will accept it. No problem. That's your definition. You have your own definition now of faith now. It's not the one which is generally it is. But anyway, it's okay.
So it can be faith based on evidence.
Well, so the way that a bishop, a Christian bishop, once explained it, which I quite liked, and he said, it is not sort of irrational. It is like supra-rational. In other words, it's not so much that I won't be able to fully recreate his words, but in other words, he said it was as if not so much that he had his faith because of no evidence, but because of a sense that he had, a sort of deep inner sense of yes, I can believe in this. He equated it to like if you have a friend, you'll sort of you'll believe in them and you'll trust them sort of instinctively based on what you already know in the past. So, in other words,
I think that's more of a Christian philosophy of faith.
Yeah, listen, here we have something. There are different definitions. They said, for example, a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So you have a complete trust in someone or something, which are the scientists, without you doing the research. You haven't done the research.
Faith. What I would say is this. So there was a book. I don't know if you ever read it. It's called How the World Thinks.
Okay.
It's about sort of the different schools of thought throughout the world.
Yeah.
And it mentioned at one point that there's an Indian tradition of, I think it was something like 5 or maybe more sort of sources we have of truth or of knowledge.
Okay.
One of them was.
My coffee.
One of them was.
It's become cold, but it's okay. I drink cold.
One of them was like sort of the empirical. So like what.
You want to get your coffee or something, by the way? Sure.
Thank you. So one of them was the sort of the testimony of reliable witnesses. One of them was was a kind of sort of logical deduction from a previous piece of information. Then there was a kind of there's revelation, I believe, was one of them, and then there was there was another one which was kind of.
Alfred, we are drifting away from our discussion.
So my point was, and I can't remember all the ones I mentioned, but there are various different sources that we can obtain knowledge from. So I would say the testimony of reliable experts or witnesses is only one of them. There are several.
There are no witnesses, by the way. They have theory. I will tell you something. And let me educate you a bit. Sorry about. I'm not here to show arrogance or but I just wanted to let you know, because I myself I'm a scientist. Even though that I don't know if mathematicians consider to be scientists, by the way. But anyway, it's because in the past they used to have their own faculty. By the way, in the past they used to say they have their own way of that. So my point is, I'm a mathematician, I myself, and I have studied many of these theories. The issue is that's where maths actually clashes with science. How? Because with scientists, mathematicians, how they clash with scientists. Because mathematicians, we have these standards in terms of theories to accept a theory. When we have a theory, this theory shouldn't have any single example, any counter-example contradict that theory. And that's to accept it in mathematics, to accept a theory as a theory, we shouldn't have any counter-example. Now the problem with the scientists, they said overwhelming evidences indicate this, even though there are some examples counter it. Do you see the point? So they will say, there are some overwhelming evidences. So they will rely on overwhelming evidences, and that's what in terms of physics, then the cosmology and other things. The problem is, We're not talking about an overwhelming evidences. We're talking about even these evidences that they use. All of them doesn't even reach to the level of hypothesis. There could be a hypothesis. It's an assumption. Even the Big Bang, there are no single evidence about the Big Bang. They said because what happens because of the turn of the redness, for example. That's why they believe that the universe is expanding. They said if it expands, that means there should be a point at certain point used to be singular, used to be together at one point. That's the idea. That's how they are thinking. The problem is to think in this way, to say there should be a single thing or a singular thing, or to be at certain point at that point. They literally have no single evidence to confirm this at all. It's just an assumption because they said, for example, if you are how they said if you are on the other side of the ocean and you see a wave, coming to the shore of the ocean, that means that wave had started at certain point. That means when you go back, that's how it is. So basically they said when you go back, that there is a starting point for it. So that's their assumption. Now, and that's why they have no clue, no evidence to say that there is a Big Bang that happened. It is an assumption. So there is no single evidence affirming this. That's our point. Let alone everything that relies on this theory, including evolution, everything that relies on this theory. Because what happened? They said, okay, this is a coincidence, because they wanted to use the coincidence. There are some coincidence that happens. How this Big Bang happens? Because it was a coincidence. Then this Big Bang happens. And after this Big Bang, things evolved. And the same thing, even in terms of singularity. We know, for example, bang is a sign of destruction rather than building. And then to say these things evolved and then to be at certain point, very condensed point, and then it evolved again, it has its own issues, it has its own problems. Let alone as well that the earth to be here, to exist at this stage and this point, and let alone as well the things to exist, that because of the existence of the water, the existence of all of these things getting together, and then in order to create the first cell, and this first cell evolved to the, for example, to multiple cell creatures, and then this multiple cell evolves over a period of time. They said give it millions of years. The problem is all of these are, hypotheses. They put it just to stop a beautiful person like yourself, a beautiful historian like yourself, to stop thinking on this. They don't want you to think.
Well, so in response to a couple things there. So first of all, you say that the theory of evolution relies upon the Big Bang theory, but it doesn't. The evidence for evolution, I mean, even if the Big Bang theory turned out to be wrong, the evidence for evolution wouldn't disappear. We still have, the fact that you can witness, the process of, genetic breeding, and how we can, shape, plants and animals, and we can then go back to the fossil record and
even by the way, even with the fossil record, and we'll come to the point, by the way, even with this evolution, even with the fossil record. Now listen to this, their hypothesis is as follows. What happens with all of these things? The first cell, how the first cell was created, again, it's vague, because they can't even say the same thing about the singularity, about the universe. They couldn't explain, and then they said there could be at certain heat, at certain temperature, at certain things, lightning came, all of these things. At one point, then the first cell occurs. Let's agree on this. The question is, now this first cell, how did it realize how to survive? The first cell. So there is a first cell. You need this first cell to survive, correct? This first cell, when it occurs, how did it rely how to survive? Because you need to know as well, there are some kind of consciousness in a way or another that at least, I will not say the full consciousness, at least just to be cautious not to basically instinct, to die, at least something to survive. So it should have a pre-information. That information has to exist in that first cell. to realize that in order to survive, they had to do certain process, even simpler process.
Are you asking about the beginning of DNA?
For example.
Okay. So in other words, there's a...
Have you studied it? Have you studied it?
No, as I said, not,
so it's another faith.
No. I mean, what I'm saying is that the two main questions, because I assume you may have heard of the term "the God of the gaps." Have you heard that expression?
No. I understand. I understand where the scientists they come from. Well, I know how they try to, you know.
Well, so it's the expression used to refer to how divine explanations have historically been given to explain things that human beings otherwise couldn't explain, and then the more explanations that we then have, the more we understand about the world, the fewer things are therefore explained through God. So, thousands of years ago, the Greeks would say, because they didn't know why there was winter and why there was summer, so they then said, well, like Hades kidnapped the daughter of the goddess that caused, summer, so, and there's this whole myth about that, and so on. The Norse would say, well, why is there lightning? Well, it's because of Thor, and so on. Why are there animals?
But it wasn't the interpretation of the Muslims. Yeah. Never was the interpretation of the Muslims. It was never. Even though Islam was way. By the way, we believe all prophets they preach Islam, and all Muslims they preach Islam, and all of them they came with this with the main thing. Of course, this world is a world of reasoning, and there are certain things that happens with the reason. There are things that happen. We understand it. And by the way, I'm not denying about, for example, adaptation with the animals. I'm not denying that there could be an element of evolvement, for example, between the creatures. That certain things. I'm not saying it's totally, not true. There could be, for example, some kind of development between certain horses and donkeys and things like that. There could be kind of a common ancestor or whatever. That's something I'm not saying this totally, is not there. But what I'm saying, when it comes to, when it comes to the human being, that's a special creation of God, firstly, and when it comes as well, and even with certain creatures as well, for the way that it is, because you need to know, and again, here we're not filling the gaps by the existence of God. No, we're not doing this. We're saying all these questions, which you or try to rely on your faith in these scientists, which is faith, by the way. But don't deny it; it's a faith.
Well, no,
Alfred, let's call things as it is. Let's call sun as sun. We don't call this as moon with sun. Correct? Let's call this tree as a tree. When we have faith in something, it's a faith. Don't call it something.
We've been hopping from topic to topic. We haven't really gone to actually sort of finish any of them.
Yeah.
So I never really got around to explaining why I didn't think that was an apt description.
That's why I wanted to go to the first question. Now, describe faith, and do you follow that faith, the faith of atheism, which is faith? Let's use this term. Of faith.
If you're using the term faith just to refer to very strong belief, then we can just call it belief.
No, I'll call it faith. It's called faith in English. English is not my first language.
Oh.
I know what it means to you, so you know what faith is, and I know what faith is. Let's use that term. So you have the faith in this. Because
faith,
it's faith.
as you describe it, as you define it, then sure. But
well, that's the dictionary.
Not me. It's not me who describe it. It's not me. It's not me. We said to you. So we're not using here. We said it's a complete trust. Yeah, or confidence in someone or something. So you have a complete trust.
In kind of I don't think I would say that I have complete trust in this theory or this science and so on. I believe that the scientific process has its merits. That is not the same. At that point, that's just any belief you could describe.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So if you think about...
Can I say something? Let me tell you something. In terms of science, how they describe something, it's true. They will do some kind of experiment on certain thing. They will see, there are eyewitnesses for this experiment. They will add, for example, oxygen and hydrogen, and they will see how this goes, and they will see the water, for example. Yeah. So they will do certain things. So there is a process to do certain things. No problem. This is science, which is fine. I have no problem with this. But when you are describing the existence of the universe, when you are describing the existence of, for example, of the first cell, or the existence of the creatures, and then to say to them, using analogy which has nothing to do with it, then that's false. Basically, it's even doesn't reach to the level of hypothesis. And hypothesis, it should have some kind of, to see things. But this is total assumption, which someone like you will believe in this.
Well, so some things we can be more confident about than others. So a scientist might say, right, we have, done these experiments on X, whatever X happens to be. We have a strong amount of evidence that this is correct. And then there's this other thing where there isn't as much, but we have these, based on what evidence we do have, we have this theory that so-and-so might be the case. You can believe, unless given sufficient reason otherwise, in that thing without being like absolutely sure of, yes, like I'm 100%, like I'm not, 100% absolutely die-hard certain in the Big Bang Theory.
Okay, good, which is good. Which we are on one page, at least we are close to one page.
Yeah.
We're close now.
So, but here's the thing, you asked me about where the universe comes from in response to hearing that I didn't believe in God. Now, what I would explain, and this is why I don't think of my atheism as a faith, is so my reason is, put simply, that have you ever heard of Christopher Hitchens?
Yeah, kind of.
He once said, either God created man or man created many gods. And so when you look at
and I believe, by the way, that both of them are both of this is true, because God created man, true, and men as well. They created many gods. They worship other than, and those are, but not the ones who are worthy to be worshipped, which is true.
But when you're looking at something and there's a religious discussion, or you're trying to decide whether or not to believe in something regarding religion, you should look at it and think, which of these two explanations makes more sense based on the piece of evidence that you're looking at the time. So would this make more sense
Which
if
one,
God
the Big Bang?
created man? Well, anything.
I said to you both. I said to you, God created man, which is true, and men, that I believe this is true, and I believe as well, men as well created many gods, including atheists. They are actually atheists. They have their own gods. What's their gods, basically? What's their god? Faith in science. So even not science. Faith in these hypotheses, which they call it science, which is not science.
I mean,
but that's faith. But that's faith.
Now you're slightly twisting the definition of the word God, but my point.
I just want to give my salams. I've seen you on the YouTube, and I think your manners are impeccable.
Jazakallah khair. Allah accept from us and you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, my brother. Salam alaikum, my brother.
So if I look at the main reason why I would say I don't believe in any religion is that when I look, particularly at history, because that's my speciality.
Yeah.
And I look at the history of the world and the history of these faiths, these events and these stories, to me, make more sense if these religions are the product of human development, of human culture, than they would if they were the product of divine revelation.
We'll come to that one, by the way.
So that is the reason. So all this talk of the Big Bang Theory is actually, that's not really that important.
We'll come to that one, by the way. We'll come to that one. Which religion is there? Now, if there is God, that means there should be a faith, basically. There should be a religion. If there is God, then there should be a religion. There should be one single religion, not multiple ones. But this is a different discussion. Our discussion is you accept in the beginning that, okay, since this universe existed, which you accept it exists, is not something I think I exist. So you said it exists. Now the question is, how did this universe come into existence? It can't be there forever. It can't be there for infinity at the end of the day, because again, infinity, as in, it's a hypothesis. I'm mathematics. I don't know where we use it's a hypothesis, it's assumption, it's not a real number that we use, but just only it's a representation of something rather than to be a number. So it's not, and since this universe is finite, that it can be infinite and it can't refer to infinite. That's one thing. The other thing as well, adding to this, if this universe came into existence, so it should have a starting point. That starting point, either that the universe created itself by itself. Do you accept this?
Well, so what I would say, and this is what I was trying to get at before is that the value of scientific discoveries is based on the fact that you cannot, give the answer unless you have some evidence.
But they have already done that.
Well, no. So
they already fell into this.
Hang on. No, wait. And so therefore, if scientists said we have the answer for everything immediately, then they would discredit themselves. And so it is perfectly possible for them and for me to admit we do not yet have, and we probably never will have, the answers to every single question, but we have more answers than we used to. So this is what I was talking about with the gaps. So we used to not know a great amount about what we now know about the world and natural processes. Evolution would be an example. And so we are figuring out more things as we go along. There are still things to be discovered, and the two main ones are what caused, if there is a Big Bang, what caused the Big Bang?
Okay.
And then the other main one is where does
there is
DNA
no Big Bang again. You see here, but listen to this. Listen, it's like now again. If there is a Big Bang, what caused it? So the problem is, I'm talking about the singularity, even as it is as a starting point, how it came into existence. Do you see the point? So that's why.
So there's the two. So like I said, those are probably the two main things.
So
the two most important questions that we have not yet answered. That doesn't mean we never will. It means we haven't yet.
Let's use our mathematical, for example. Let me use my mathematical method, for example, to see. Now, either this universe was there forever, means infinitely was there, which could be, as you mentioned. Either this universe created itself by itself, which is another, could be. Either this universe as well came into existence by a creator, which is another possibility. So someone created this universe to make it exist. Is there any other possibility? Do you have any other possibility that you think about?
Aside from infinite regression, the universe creating itself, and prime mover.
Which is prime mover. Is there anything else? Do you have anything in your mind?
I suppose you could, theoretically suggest that there was a sort of cyclical nature.
But that's the infinite one. The cyclical. That's the infinite one.
That's
what they said. They said. So it's basically it will expand and then it will come to, and then it will go. What do you call it? Expand was the other term. Goes in.
Retract.
Retract, for example, and then it goes back. Then it will expand again. So that's the infinite thing. That's the infinite, by the way.
In a different way, but
in a different way. Yeah? So that goes to infinite. Yeah, that goes back to the infinite, discussion. So now here to say it's infinite, again, infinite. It is an assumed, figure, represents something, a huge number, something big, cannot be comprehended. Still, it's not a number. So that's why it doesn't exist in the real life. Basically, there is no infinite number in the universe. There is nothing called infinite. Even all the particles of this universe, are finite. Yeah, everything in this universe is finite. Yes, we know it's a huge number, but it's finite. Still, is finite. Yeah, so there is no infinite in the existence. Something is infinite. You say, as in, so I'm talking about this universe. In the existence of the universe, there is nothing called infinite. Yeah.
But you believe surely that in the sort of afterlife there is infinity. So it's like infinite.
We'll come to the point. I'm talking about this universe. We are bounded with this universe. We are bounded with this. Like, for example, for example, later on we're gonna have, maybe in the future, we're gonna have our own beta life. Correct? You know what this meta is, which is invented by Facebook, and which basically we have a digital life. We have our life. We'll have a digital life inside the computers and inside.
Upload our consciousness.
Could be, and we be there. So the thing is, still within the digital system, correct? So there are gonna be certain rulings in that system, which cannot go across the boundaries of that system, basically. So isn't within that system, yeah. So the point is not necessarily putting this, and even just only us, just to go and to have this VR and to have these earphones and just focus on that, still within the digital system. Meaning, if someone unplugged the electricity somewhere, or the electricity is finished, then everything will collapse, basically. So if there is no source of the electricity in that system as a whole. My point is, that we in this universe we live in a system that things are finite. There are nothing infinite in the system that we are living in. Yeah. So that's why to assume this universe to say was infinite or started with infinite, that again that contradicts against the very same concept about the finite universe, because still it's finite. And to say about the timing is the infinite, and again, you know, what do you mean by timing? Since this universe, there is evolvement, there is a starting point. That means there is a starting point. And by the way, they accepted that there is a starting point. They have, even all cosmologists, they accept there is a starting point. You name it Big Bang, you name it whatever, you know. So there is a starting point. So since there is a starting point, so it's impossible to assume it was infinite. It's impossible. So you cannot assume, you cannot basically put or place infinite timing into this process, basically, because the whole system that we are in, this universe is finite, including the time is finite in it. So that's how it is. Now, all this universe created itself by itself. Yeah, which another assumption, and again, which means the universe has to pre-exist before existence. It has to pre-exist before existence. Like for example, to give birth to yourself, you have to be there before you are there, and then to decide to make yourself. Or by the way, there is another assumption that this universe came by nothing, absolutely nothing. It came into existence. Do you accept this? That the universe came by nothing, came out of nothing, out of nowhere. Do you accept this?
I would say that I don't claim to know the beginning of the universe. What I can
that's
say,
not my question. Listen, Alfred.
Well, no, but you asked me
I'm asking you.
No question.
Yeah, and then after we'll elaborate.
I can't give it.
No,
I'm
talking about. Listen, I'm saying. Okay, let me finish then my argument, and then you say what you wanted to say. So, or to say this universe created, or this universe came from nothing. And we know nothing means the absence of everything, including energy, including everything. Nothing. So, yeah. So that's why nothing produced nothing. And it's with the simplest reasoning, logical argument, nothing doesn't have nothing. Basically, absence of everything. Yeah. So again, all this universe came into existence by a creator. And that's what we are saying. Okay, actually it should be with that. Now, what's your understanding about all these arguments? And if you have a further one, you know, teach us.
Well, what I would say is that there are the two main sort of stages, I suppose you could say, of religious belief. So the first one is what I suppose you could call deism, the idea of there is a creator, there is a sort of force
Alfred, we're not discussing about the God, the deity. Well, just talk about the universe, how it came into existence.
But these things are deeply interrelated, because this is what you're
you already do believe in this. Just discuss these. If you have any other fourth argument, either you affirm one of them, or you say, I don't believe in all of them, I have something else, or we talk about the existence of the universe. Leave the deity and all of these things.
No. Please let me explain. So the deist would say, yes, we believe that there is some kind of what Aristotle called a prime mover, something that sets off the universe, something that lays the foundations for this.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily believe in, like God in being involved in the world and giving us holy books and telling us what to do and so on. And the theist, the religious person, says, actually, yes, the Creator is involved and does send down revelation and does give us holy texts and so on, and can be and should be followed and so on. Everything you have been talking about up to this point, were I to accept 100% of it, would still only lead me up to the deist stage. It would not suggest, it would not provide evidence for the second stage, which is the theist stage. And frankly, I think that is by far the more important.
Good.
The atheist and the deist differ only in kind of an abstract theoretical level.
So you accept the deist argument? There is a higher power.
It is plausible. I have not yet been given sufficient.
Which means we're coming to a close. We're close now. We're close now. We are now kind of on one page. Yeah? We're kind of one page now. Now you say, here from my understanding, you are close to the deist to say there is a creator for this universe. Let's use it higher power. Yeah. So shall we agree on this? Shall we agree on this and move to the next point, or you have any issue against this? To believe there is a higher power created this universe.
I'd say I have not yet been given sort of sufficient evidence to say yes, I believe it is true. I think it could be the case, and as I said, I think it is only right for me to show a certain amount of humility in the face of a question that is grand and this sort of beyond immediate
That's good.
proof.
Like I will give you one example. Like if you do you live alone yourself?
I live with my brother.
You live with your brother. Do you have your own room?
Yes.
Okay. So, are you generally tidy or like myself? You know, I need some. Yeah, you're not tidy.
Not very tidy. I try, but not always successful.
Okay. Can I just ask, for example, do you have a phone now with you here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Do you have other phone in your room?
No.
Okay, good. So if you go to your room, do you lock your room generally when you go out or something?
I lock the door to the flat. I don't lock my room.
Okay. Suppose you lock your room, yeah? You locked the room and then you went out and then you came, you found another phone on your bed. What's your assumption? Do you think that this phone evolved from all these particles, they get together to create this phone? Or do you think someone placed it there?
So this is the old watchmaker analogy.
Yeah, that old watchmaker, yeah.
That if you found a watch, lying around, and you didn't know what the watch was.
Yes.
I would say that there is. Well, here's the important distinction. In this case, there is a pre-existing distinction that I know from the world around me. I can find from observing the world. There are.
حياك الله يبارك فيك. احنا في نصف اللعب بس تفضل.
هاي المساعدات مساعدات فلسطين.
والله ما اعرف. يعني تساعد لفلسطين يعني؟
عائلتي يعني.
الله يعينكم، اسال الله يعينكم.
بس ما يخالف. بس بحب السلام يعني وين مكانها؟
والله انا اشوف المسجد المركزي او في بعض المنظمات الخيريه ممكن تساعدهم، هذا اللي بعرفه انا يعني ما اتبع لمنظمه خيريه يعني، احنا دعويه فقط.
الله يطول عمرك.
في الدعوه احنا فقط للدعوه، فقط دعواتكم منا، الله يرضى عليك. جزاك الله حياك الله. Okay. Sorry about that for the interruption. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'd use the word.
Yes. Okay, Alfred. Yeah.
So with the watch analogy or the phone analogy in this case, there is a pre-existing knowledge I have from observation of the world that there are organic things that develop and then there are mechanical things that are created by us. So in this case, the difference is that with the phone or the watch, I therefore have reason to think, well, because this fits the parameters of a mechanical human creation, therefore the most logical conclusion is therefore that it was brought here by a human.
That's good. So that's why basically you had then in that case you will build a faith, by the way, because that's a faith. You didn't see the person, you didn't see who put it, but you, based on your own reasoning, you accept to believe there must be someone who placed it there.
Logical deduction,
yes.
rather than
basically. Yes, but that's how it is because the idea is that's what I'm saying to have. Going back to the definition, which I used to do earlier, it's not my definition. It's what the first definition by Google. Yeah, basically you have something certain. Yeah,
that's how it might.
A complete trust. So you have a complete trust. You have a complete trust in your thinking, and you have confidence in your thinking that there is in someone or something that someone placed the phone on your thing.
That is how the word faith might be used in sort of common parlance. It's not necessarily the most precise definition
about
in this
religion.
Kind of context.
No, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this other thing. Now, since this universe came into existence, that means they must be used. You believe you are more deist, let's say, to accept that there is a maker for this universe, basically. Yeah, you agree with this?
Yeah, a higher force or power.
Higher power. This higher power, is it powerful to create this universe?
Yes.
Must be. Is it intelligent? Does it have the knowledge to do things?
I mean, when you talk about knowledge, then you're there's a certain amount of, I won't say anthropomorphizing, but a certain amount. The word knowledge is kind of assuming a certain nature of being.
Because we need to know. we have to understand these concepts. Otherwise, for example, if a power with no knowledge, it will cause chaos. Generally, that's what we know about the power. Because there is no power except if it has knowledge, then that's something else. So that's why meaning that since this universe, something evolved this universe, something created this universe, this something is very powerful. Now, and this universe as well is so sophisticated, the way that it is, the structure of it. Us, our bodies, the way that we are very sophisticated creatures, and everything that is in our life, we are now here. We are now here, by the sun here. Just wanted to get few from the sunshine, at least a bit. Yeah, all these things, the trees and everything, and all the creation around us, all these things, there must a factor of knowledge there to create this universe. It cannot come by ignorance. Otherwise, I will suggest to you, if someone wanted to go to the moon, those people, we used to have they used to have in our village a carpenter, someone who's a carpenter, or someone who's a shoemaker. Can he make, for example, suits for the astronauts who goes to the moon? Can he do that? He should. You will say, the very suggestion that comes to your mind, say, if he has the knowledge to do it, then yes, he can. Correct? But if he doesn't have knowledge, no background, nothing, we'll just say, you know what? Let me make you something similar to the shoes, and something, a suit or something that you could use it to that. And let's see how things goes with you. So these things. So that's why when you look into this universe, when you look into this sophisticated universe, the way that it is, the way that the structure of the universe itself, and everything that's around it. So this power, it should have knowledge to create things. It can't be ignorant. It shouldn't have absence of knowledge. It should be knowledgeable to create these things.
If you assume that this higher power has a mind that is equivalent or analogous to our own,
I didn't say mind.
Yes,
I didn't say mind.
Well, mind, consciousness, whatever
I would
you
say
want to call it.
it could be consciousness, but we're talking about intelligence. We're talking about knowledge. Knowledge, basically, knowledge should have knowledge.
But I would say your suggestion is correct only if we assume that this higher power or logos or whatever you want to call it is it's something that has consciousness or awareness in the way that we do.
Not necessarily, by the way.
It would only really stand up as
I have conscious, I have conscious, you have conscious, the dog has a conscious, the donkey has a conscious, the ant has a conscious, each one. We differ, even we use the same term about consciousness, it doesn't mean we are similar in terms of our consciousness. You understand?
Similar degrees, but it's still,
no, we're different degrees, of course. There are different consciousness, different type of consciousness, let's say. Yeah, and that's why what I'm saying here, since this universe came into existence, and there is a higher power, moved everything. Yeah, the prime mover, as what you described earlier. So it should have knowledge to create things, to create at least the singular cell or the singular thing, at least, according to you. It should have the knowledge to create it.
Again, I worry about the sort of danger too much of an equating of beings such as us with something of that nature. I don't think we necessarily operate upon the same sort of rules.
No, not the same, but we're talking about knowledge to create things. That's what I'm talking. I'm talking about. Firstly, powerful. Secondly, knowledge. You should have knowledge. Otherwise, power with knowledge doesn't do nothing. But power with knowledge creates something.
Yeah. All I was questioning was the extent to which one could say that yes, it must, by necessity, have knowledge, because knowledge is a word that we use to refer to beings that would be so different to a higher power of that sort.
Yes,
I don't know if it would necessarily be necessarily true to say, it must have knowledge in order to do.
Yeah, that's why it's not like us, but it's knowledge. For example, we for example, ourselves, we gain our knowledge through different things. Some of our knowledge came by inheritance, with our DNA. We have certain things. We have certain level of knowledge that we're born with. Yeah, we have as well certain and many levels of knowledge that we get it as well through learning and the learning process, etc. Similarly with many creatures as well, they are born with certain knowledge, basically. Yeah, even some creatures, they never met their parents. some creatures, they never meet their parents. As soon as they get out from their egg or from their shell, then they will have the knowledge what to do, what not to do at the first thing of their life. Yeah, yeah. Like for example, the turtles, for example, the mothers they will lay the eggs in area, and then they will leave to the sea, to the open sea. So this turtle, they're born with certain things. First of all, the first thing that when they hatch from the eggs, they'll go to the sea and to find food and to do things. So they are already equipped with certain knowledge, with certain level of knowledge, even before they're born. Yeah. So that's the point is. So since they were talking about the creator, we should have knowledge to create this universe. You agree?
Let's accept that for the sake of argument and then move on.
Okay. So since it has knowledge, this power, all powerful, and should have the knowledge to create this universe, then it should have a will to decide to do things, not to do things. So that's why when this power created this universe and it has knowledge, so it decided to create it, and it could, and this power as well could not to decide to do it. So it means that it's not something that is, like it's not just only that, like the intelligence of the computers, for example, just to do things and then they will process by itself. No, actually, to decide to do things and decide not to do things, which is the will, what we call it, the will. They should have an independent will.
I mean, again, this is assuming a level of.
That's not assuming. That's not assuming.
I mean,
if there is knowledge, then there should be consciousness.
I mean, if this is simply a kind of generating force that operates on a different level to the sort of material world, it doesn't necessarily follow that it must therefore have a mind and a will and make choices.
I didn't say mind. I never said mind, because even the computer, they don't have not necessarily minds. You could just do things to them. They can do their different things. Even nowadays, they can do to have these decisions. If certain decisions, they can do that. Yeah, certain things. That's not my point. My point is, so since it has knowledge, that means it has consciousness. That means has a will to decide things, not to decide things.
Sorry, my legs.
No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if
must be the same with you.
Yeah, if it has, so sorry about that. Oh, sorry. So if it has an independent will, yeah, basically this is the definition of God. All powerful, all knowing, has independent will.
All powerful doesn't necessarily follow from it sets off the creation of the universe. It doesn't necessarily mean it must therefore be utterly omnipotent. But
yeah, that's what it means. All powerful possesses the whole power.
But I'm saying
because it can't be something. There shouldn't be any weaknesses, basically.
I wouldn't say that's necessarily a kind of a logical necessity based on.
No, not logical. It's not logical. So because here this universe is so big, needs a huge power. So and this universe is nothing compared to the power of the Creator. So that's why it has the power to create things.
I mean, the thing that, again, I wouldn't necessarily say that because this power or this force sets off the creation of the universe, it must therefore maintain and control complete absolute power over everything. I don't think that necessarily follows.
No, it follows because again, if us as a human being, when we create the computers, we should have something to say to shut them down at a certain point. We should have the power to do that.
But again, we're thinking creatures that would make a decision that, if we're going to create this thing, then therefore we don't, for our own uses, we therefore want an off switch. The generating power of the universe wouldn't necessarily, operate.
Because if it's all knowing, yeah. So if it's all knowing, that means that to know things, what to do, what not to do. So it should have the knowledge to do things, and as well. So since it's all-knowing, that means, and if it has independent will to decide to do things, to decide not to do things, that means that everything is going to be under the control of this power.
I mean, again,
so it's not meaning. When I'm saying all-knowing, that means that you have the absolute knowledge of doing things. If we are as a creation of this Creator, if we are as a creation of this deist, as you said, this Creator. and we have the knowledge, we have the knowledge that we have, that means this creator should be greater in knowledge than us, way greater than knowledge than us. So that's why here, so when all of us, when we are created here on this universe, that means this creator should have the power to create this universe, should have the knowledge to create this universe and to know what's happening in this universe, and as well should have an independent will. And that is basically, this is the, you could say, this is the simplest actually way of thinking for anyone who's just born today, are inclined to believe in this higher power, are inclined to believe in God. And that's why they have done a research, by the way. They found out that even babies, if you leave them, that they're inclined to believe in God, basically.
Wait, hold on. Wait, babies? Yeah. How do you know? How do you find out if babies are inclined?
They have done that. Ask the researchers.
Can I just add one thing? There's a German psychologist. He mentioned that every action must have knowledge behind it. So every action that we pursue, we do it based on knowledge. So when we analyze the baby, when the baby is born, the baby is able to instinctively know where the breast is. Yeah? Now this is something in medicine is called routine reflex. That the babies, for some reason, they have that intuitive knowledge to know where it is. But who taught the baby? How did the baby know where it is?
Well, that would be genetic coding of natural selection. So, there's animals that will know. I mean, you mentioned turtles. It's like when they're born, they don't see the mother going in. The genetic coding tells them, oh, I need to get into water quickly, because they stand a better chance of survival if that is the case. But going back to what you were saying about,
but genetic code. Sorry, 1 second. But genetic code does not teach the person in terms of necessity of knowledge. Genetic code is just a biological aspect. When the child is born, the parents is the one who's teaching them some sort of education. So even when the baby is born, it's not the mother that's teaching the baby where it is. Yeah, the baby just instinctively knows where it is. So if psychologist tells us today that every action that we pursue is based on knowledge, where did the baby get the knowledge from? It cannot be from genetic code. This is a biological. It's called nature versus nurture in psychology, right? So what you're talking about is nature. I'm talking about the nurture. Nurture meaning the environmental influence. Children are being taught by society or by their parents. But as soon as the baby is born, the baby didn't get taught.
But if you're referring, when you say the baby knowing where
come brother
it
to the
is,
side, come.
Oh no, that's yeah.
The baby knowing where it is. I mean,
every child.
Why is it not possible for it to be a result of genetic coding, that it will see a mother and think, oh, I should, oh, that's the breast.
No, they don't see. They don't see. They can't. They don't see at the firstborn. They don't see.
So when you talk, so what was it you were talking about when you were discussing the baby being aware of where?
No, because the baby is being aware, intuitively, instinctively, where the breast is.
Yes.
Right. That is something that is not acquired by learning.
And as soon as the mother places the baby, place the baby on the breast.
Yes.
As soon as they get there, as soon as they start suckling the breast.
Exactly. They know exactly where it is.
And they know how to suckle.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
So
so human beings, because our brains are so large, we require a lot longer to develop. So at the beginning, we only have basic things like that. Most animals have
but
the turtles know instinctively.
No, but that's later on. That's acquired by learning.
No, the turtles, they literally just come out.
Yeah, literally when they come, they will go to the ocean. They have this. That means they are born with certain things, and this is not evolved over a period of time. The problem is what they will try to say, because this is over a period of time, because there are some certain things that they keep. For example, there are no single, for example to say, okay, they have done failure until one of them, was rectified. Not necessarily the case. So basically, there's always things they were going in the right direction in terms of that. even some cells as well, how to for example to focus, how to survive basically, even the single cells as well, let alone even the multiple cell small creatures as well. They will get as well. They already have the, in their biology, in their own DNA, how to survive, and the same thing for multiple cells and many creatures, the same thing. So that's why I want to say it evolved over a period of time. There's nothing like this. There is, again, they are using assumption. Many of the scientists, they will use assumption just to say, you know what, it could be over a period of time. But there is nothing like that. When you say over a period of time, that means you should have many examples of failure until one of them is right. And there is nothing. And for example, your eyes are here. Your eyes not in your knees there. They are there. So it's not something in the nature choose for your eyes to be here. So there is something that the Creator, when He created you with your eyes here, knowingly that the right place for the eyes to be there.
Well, you talk about the Creator designing us, and this goes back to something I was wanting to talk about earlier. So you mentioned that you were willing. This is something I've heard Muslims say before online, is that it's that they're willing to accept that animals may have developed according to natural
maybe,
selection.
I will not say,
humans have a special sort of design and relationship with God, and God has a purpose for us. Would you say that you don't believe that humans evolved?
Not necessarily. I don't believe that the human is evolved at all. I believe that we are a special creation of God. That God that created us directly from Adam, our father, and also from Eve. But as well, I'm not saying for other creatures as well. There could be certain creatures that evolve from each other, but not necessarily all of them. So there could be, as I mentioned to you, there could be one ancestor for the donkeys and the horses. There could be that. Yeah, I have no issues against that. Yeah, for example, or to say between the canine, for example, there could be one single. I don't know. There could be. I'm not saying it's not. It's definitely not. But again, when it comes as well to the human being, yeah, God has created them as directly, with certain level of knowledge, with certain level of understanding, and as well God made them as well sense the same thing. If there are someone with larger brain, as you mentioned, with different, for example, with a different will, not just only if our purpose just only eating and drinking and reproduction, it's actually animals, they do better job than us. At least they don't cause pollution, they don't cause wars, they don't do all of that. But us, we do all of this. That means we have our consciousness is different than the other animals. So that's why when we are deciding certain things, our decision as well could have an impact to everything around us.
Well, so the reason why I mention, the reason why I came back to the idea of evolution with humans and with animals is that if humans, if Homo sapiens did not evolve and we were created as is, a sort of unique species by God, why have we found the remains of these previous human species that were similar to us but different, and increasingly different as you go back in time? So, I mean, in the modern world, still alive today, we have animals that are very different to us, and then we have ones that are quite similar to us. So the chimpanzee, for instance, in many ways very similar to us. Okay. And then other things like gorillas are slightly more different. Monkeys again slightly more different. And then you get to like all these other things like dogs and dolphins and so on. Yeah. And then you find
as well bears are similar to us.
Yeah,
so what we do?
Then we find remains of Australopithecus, which is a bit like a chimp. I mean, it wasn't, but it's a bit like one. But it stood upright on two legs.
Okay.
It stood upright on two legs. And then you have a collection of other species that we found the remains of. So we found Homo habilis, which, again is quite like an ape but more intelligent. They were able to use stone tools.
This assumption. Carry on. Who said that? Is there an eyewitness that they witnessed them to use tools?
Well, they would have. Homo habilis. We would have found fossils of them.
They have with their tools. They were unforceful with their tools.
I mean, I'd have to go back to the book that I
The book
read
never said
and
it's.
so on.
That's why you read.
Why
I would say
specifically it was that.
Alfred, I think you're a good historian, but you're not a good scientist. So
Can we just go back to the foundation of science?
Well, no, hang on a second, because I want to finish this point, which is, you say that we were created as we are. You know, we were not evolved, and yet, if that's true, and if a religion, let's say Islam, is true, why is it then that we found evidence for the evolution of man, of all these different hominid, let's say, and then eventually human species, leading up to Erectus, which is quite like us, but slightly smaller brain. The Neanderthals, again, shorter, a bit different to us, but quite similar.
Could I just respond? Sorry,
why would Allah not mention these things in the Quran or anything else, or why is this not in any other religious text? And are these not signs that we have evolved?
I think it goes back to the foundation of science, because there's a difference between theoretical science and established science. So if we go by the bare definition of the scientific method, it's basically a collection of data that is repeated, observed, and experimented, right? Darwinian evolution falls in the category of theoretical science, not established science.
Yes.
Why? Because you cannot go back 65 million years ago, whatever the case, you cannot observe and test and repeat, right? Now there's something called established science, meaning anything that passes scientific method is established science. For example, if you can test under the laboratory bacteria, that's not a theory, that's a fact, right? It's established science. Big Bang theory and Darwinian evolution is based on theoretical science. Now, what do scientists say regarding theoretical science? Anyone can make a hypothesis. Hypothesis basically means a set of propositional statements without evidence. Even you can make a hypothesis. But however, it becomes a theory when there's overwhelming evidence. But however, if it's a theoretical realm, it can only provide you the best explanation, but it's open to wrong. It's only provisional. So even if, for the sake of argument, you believe in Darwinian evolution, in the next 50, 100 years, according to scientists, because it falls in the realm of theoretical science, there could be evidence that is contrary.
Theoretically speaking, yes, it could be.
The same thing with what you said. These things that they found, and by the way, even they said there is always missing. There are many gaps, major gaps. Even, for example, in terms of the similarity about the certain things, what they have done. Because I went to these things. You'll find few bones here and there, and then they said this is the continuation of the bone. Who told you that?
Yeah, can I also address this?
How is that?
You mentioned that how come there are evidences that suggest of Darwinian evolution? The point is this: in philosophy of science, you have to assume that the world is in order. You have to assume that the world is rational conformity. Now, you cannot put under the laboratory to test and to verify that the world is in order. So science gives its own philosophical assumption. Theoretical science, in terms of the evidence, is inference to the best explanation. So when you talk about fossil evidences, it's only inference to the best explanation. It's an indirect evidence. It's not empirical evidence. You haven't seen for yourself.
And there is no full.
Exactly.
There are no full skeleton, but for you to know,
exactly.
There are no full skeleton about all what you mentioned. It's literally we found different bones. They said this could be that. Who told you that?
Yeah.
Why this the thing that you said? Maybe it could be the ancestor of the gorilla. Could be the ancestor of the chimpanzee.
Theoretical science, anything that falls into theoretical science is not based on certainty. It can only provide the best explanation, but it's provisional to truth.
Yes, but I would say that you shouldn't allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good. So just because you cannot know, and this is something that scientists have said, that it's not a good idea to say, yes, I'm 100% certain in this or that. But you do this. But this is what you're doing.
Can I just say one thing?
Hang on a second.
Sure.
Even if you're not 100% certain, because you think, well, theoretically, someone in the future might find evidence that contradicts this, you go with the explanation that is the most likely, that has the most evidence, rather than saying, like, well, I'll accept no conclusions because I can't be 100% certain. So, I mean,
hang on. But scientists do give the conclusions. Scientists do give the conclusions conclusion that Darwin evolution is the best explanation.
Which you accept now, which you faithfully follow.
There is very strong evidence for it. That doesn't mean
They only give you inference to the best explanation. Inference to the best explanation meaning you can assume that it happens, but it can be.
There is no explanation. There is no scientific explanation. There is no, what do you call it? There is no. It's only theoretical science.
It's only theoretical.
It's not evidence, scientific, evidence to say it is the case.
No, there is evidence. I mean, it's not
like
it's not the same as saying. I mean, just because I say, like, theoretically new evidence might be discovered, that doesn't mean that the evidence that already has been discovered doesn't exist.
Regardless,
and it doesn't mean you can't make
my friend Alfred, try to understand. When you are, again, what we are saying, you are using these assumptions. Yeah, these assumptions. What you said, you brought me these examples. You said that could be this more standing or more sitting or more this. Actually, in the past, they used to say by theory, they said there must be the human in the past. They must have a larger scalp, larger brain. That's in the past. They said this because because in order for them, and they used to say even this argument, basically that one, the ancient human being, they should have larger brain, larger scalp. In order for them, they can do different things in their life, and as well, if you give them computer of nowadays, they will be able to use the computers. Correct. And then later on, they said, no, hold on a second, not necessarily larger. It's actually the other way around.
It's happened many times.
So you see here, I'm talking about in 40 years, in less than 40 years, this been changed in 40 years. And I remember a documentary, I used to watch it in the past. They used to say, oh, our ancestors, they should have a larger brain. They should have larger scalp. They have this. And then later on, they said, no, hold on a second. Not necessarily the case. They should have a smaller brain because the things that they do is less than the things that we do now. So we evolved, our brain evolved and become bigger compared to our bodies, for example, because of the things what we do. And then they contradict with the gorilla. They have a larger brain compared to their bodies. And then you see these contradictions.
So when it comes to evolution, when it comes to one creature going to the next creature, for example, they say it was single cell, then it evolved into like fish, then it came into land, then it became a mammal, then it became human. The process of evolution, it requires transformation of the DNA, right?
Genetic mutation.
Transformation of the DNA through radiation. But when radiation hits the DNA, it damages it. It doesn't produce new information. For a monkey to become a human, you need to change the DNA, right? You need to change the DNA of the monkey for it to become a human. So like when Hiroshima got bombed by the Americans, there was people that suffered from radiation sickness. But it didn't cause them to develop wings, it caused them to have disformed fingers.
That's a good point.
Fingers to be disfigured. It didn't create new information within the DNA. It just swaps it around, it corrupts it, it causes deformation of the body. It doesn't create new information to turn one creature to another creature.
Well, look,
by the way, the point is, the brother, he was talking about something again, because that's the assumption about the evolvement. By the way, they say because there must be something, there must be under certain radiation, certain things made the DNA to develop in a way in order to make another creatures. That's what he was talking. And again, all of these things again, we came to the point to say there are no scientific evidence affirming that we have a common ancestor between us and the apes. There is no scientific evidence.
So you don't regard the fossils that we have.
Which fossils? Do you have a full one?
But you're making
in my possession, no.
Is there full one exist?
Well, I mean, I'd have to look up to actually certain there isn't like a single rib missing from one of them. But the point.
No. It's actually the other way around. They have part of a jaw and part of a rib. They said that's it.
Some are more complete than others. Sometimes they'll say, well, we found like a couple bones, and we think that therefore this might be a slightly different type of dinosaur, and so on.
And by the way,
but there are
as well in the past, in the past, by the way, and they have done a research, by the way. One of the scientific magazine, by the way, it was led by one actually corrupt guy from England here. What he did, he went to chimpanzees, gorilla bones, they collected them together, burned them, do certain things. What's his name? I forget his name. I forget his name.
Scientist?
One scientist here in England, and then he made the research. I think maybe Brian Cox. So what happened? Literally brought different bones together. They made one kind of skeleton, yeah, and then put them under pressure and burn, etc. Burn them, and then brought them. This is the ancestor, and then they did the research here and went through, and then later on. Actually, one of the people who literally tested the bones, and then they found actually it is not the truth. These bones are literally is not the ones which has to be. And literally a counterexample, which already been established that this is the common ancestor between us and the apes, and then it went. So you see here, that's what happens generally in all media all the time. You will give like for example the other day, they will give in the news. This is what happens. For example, given what's happened in Gaza, yeah, 40 babies being heeded by the Hamas or whatever, decapitated, and then after that they say, oh, sorry, it was the wrong information. But already the damage being done. Already people they took it. Yeah. The same thing with the same example that happens. The people they say, oh, this is what happened. This is the common ancestor. There is no first. Secondly, it doesn't mean if there are similarity in certain things in terms of the number of chromosomes and things like that. It doesn't mean that we're similar. You see the point?
It's identical. Yeah.
Well, what I was saying earlier about how, if you're looking at, if you're judging the veracity of a religion, let's say Islam, for instance, and you're looking at these various pieces of evidence in the world, what you have to ask yourself is not, oh, can I be absolutely 100% certain without any doubt whatsoever about this option?
Us as Muslims, yes, we have 100%, 110%.
But what you
beyond certainty,
to do, let's just say, is to look at each piece of evidence and say which seems more likely in the light of this, which explanation it seems more likely as an explanation, more convincing for this piece of evidence. A, that Islam in this case is divinely inspired, that is the truth that's sent from the creator of the universe,
yes.
Or that this is the product of human culture and history and development. And so
that's why we put it into a test, and then we'll see.
So when I look at the fact that there are all these fossils going back to Australopithecus and then through Habilis and Erectus and Neanderthals, and
which is nonsense again, but we'll carry on.
And I think, well, which is more likely? A, that Allah creates the universe and sets off all these events and is responsible for creating all the natural world, and creates the Quran to give to humans and mentions all these various things, but chooses not to mention either in this book or in any revelation he gave previously, chose not to reveal the fact that we're only one of several human species that have existed. That seems like a very important thing to mention, and he doesn't choose to mention that there's been all these billions of years and millions of years of evolution. He doesn't mention.
There are certain things mentioned in the Quran. No. I will tell you something. There is no point to mention because these are our assumptions. You are using your assumption, and you want God to talk about these assumptions. The problem is these assumptions, which you said, the Habilis and these ones, those are assumptions. Do you understand what's the meaning of that? It is an assumption. Maybe 50 years down the line, all of these theories are going to be demolished. It's not going to be there. They're going to be debunked, maybe in 50 years' time. Because it's theoretical science. It's not factual science, not fact. It's not based on facts. It's based on because again, when they found portion of bones here and there, this is not necessarily it is the creature that we think. It's drawn in the mind of the people, and people they draw it, and then they make someone who's a historian who has nothing to do with science to accept it and to believe this.
But again,
and you have nothing to do with science.
But it's not the same to say that something theoretically could be new evidence. That's not the same as saying, and therefore the evidence we do have it isn't worth believing
that correction, right?
Might be the point.
Theoretically,
So that's what-
but that's not the same thing as saying
Because God is
it's
true.
not the
For us,
most-
God is true. It's not open to correction. You
Right, but
understand?
that is
First of all,
faith,
I feel-
exactly. That is
Which
faith.
is you have.
No, but that's the
Can I
difference
just
between
mention-
what
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
saying. I'm accepting.
I feel you've been a victim of scientism.
Yes.
I believe science has become like a dogmatic belief, which has never been the case. It's a recent phenomenon. Let's respect what science can offer. Theoretical science, established science. Whatever established science, we as Muslims have got no problem to accept. Theoretical science, we have the right to say we don't need to believe. Why? Because you even made it admission is not on certainty. So now you are imposing your probabilistic model onto us. Now, secondly, you mentioned about where is the certainty of revelation? This is where the Sheikh, inshallah, he can provide you proofs that if Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final prophet, is the messenger of Allah, then based upon his testimony, everything that is mentioned in the Quran has to be true.
So this is so you were talking earlier about faith, and you were saying that I have faith. What we've reached.
Yeah, we have
here
faith.
Is,
We
is
have
the
faith.
distinction. When you were saying that I have
good.
faith, this is the distinction. This is why I wasn't saying that I have faith, because faith is what you guys are saying. That no, I'm absolutely certain.
Yeah.
Like I do not believe that there could be possibly any evidence that would dispute. There is no evidence that I accept could be introduced that would refute my faith. That is the difference between what you are saying and what I'm saying, which is I follow the evidence.
Good.
The evidence says at the moment this. It is. I doubt that new evidence will come in that will refute this, but it is at least theoretically possible. And if the evidence changes,
I just mention
I
one
will
thing? Sorry,
shift.
Sheikh.
I will shift my belief based on the evidence. So that is the distinction.
The difference
earlier.
thank you. The difference between you and us, your faith is based on probability. Our faith is based on certainty. Now, what you're doing is you're imposing your probabilistic model onto us, which is not fair. We're on a level of certainty, you're on a level of doubt, but yet on your level of doubt, you're imposing us to say, well, how come most likely? No, this is not fair.
And I will tell you.
Secondly, if we can provide to you legislative proofs that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final prophet, based upon his testimony, wherever the revelation he receives from Allah overrides any of your scientific preconceived notions.
So this
that make sense?
conversation. Yes, but this conversation began when we were I was asking a question about Islam, and you asked me, like, what is your religion? I said,
Yeah, because this is the primary,
and so then you started, you started discussing with me the reasons why you thought I should become a believer. So this is me explaining why I don't have.
No, by the way, I didn't say to you should. No, I didn't say.
Exactly.
I never said this. I never said this.
I'm not imposing. I'm giving the explanation for why I do not
But
have
you're
the
trying
world.
to. No. You're trying to cast your you're trying to cast your doubts onto us. But we as Muslims, we have the right to not believe in what you're saying.
I'm not trying to force my.
And as well, the same thing. By the way, did I say to you, why don't you believe in Islam? At any statement.
Correct.
Did I say that to you?
No, not in those words.
Did I say to you? Did I say to you what you should believe in God? Did I say this to you?
No, but you're making arguments in favour of the existence.
I understand, but so I'm not imposing. So I'm saying.
I didn't say you were imposing upon me.
You just said now, just in a minute.
I said that I am not imposing on you.
Okay. Now let's think about. Let's go back to the point. For example, as I said to you, our evidence is based on what we believe. It's not just assumptions. It's not theories. It's not scientific theories. It's based on facts. So things that we know, we believe are facts. Yeah. Now there are certain things. For example, and one of the proofs that about the existence of God, one of the proofs about the prophethood of Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the Quran. The Quran, which I advise you to read and to study it and to understand the Quran from Quranic perspective. And as well, one suggestion for you, go into the journey with someone. There is a philosopher, actually. He is a well-known, respected figure in America, a mathematician, and he used to be the head of Atheist Society, by the way, in one of the universities. His name is Jeffrey Lang. Yeah, have you heard about him?
No.
My advice to you, just read about him, just to know his journey to Islam. Basically, when he studied the Quran, he had all of this. What you said, he went through it. what you said, he went through it. And then he came to this conclusion, okay, now he said the Quran is a book. When you read it, when you understand the details of the Quran, you will be in one of the two options. To assume this book doesn't exist as if you never heard about it and just move on in your life. And if you know this book exists and it's fact, that means you have to accept what it has. So this is the dilemma that he went through. And that's Jibril Lang is one of those people. He's a professor, an academic person, and eventually he accepted Islam after studying the Quran. Now, one of the things, this is what we are giving you today.
My family has a copy, but
you could have, that's yours. You don't have the family, that's family. So, for example, one of the things about the Quran, that there are certain, what we call it, real facts in the Quran, not necessarily scientific facts. Those are facts in the Quran, mentioned in the Quran. Now, I will give you a few examples, and then you think about it. What do you think the knowledge of the people 1400 years ago about cosmology?
The knowledge, rudimentary. I mean, not non-existent, but lesser.
What do you mean? Like, give us detail. Do you think they know about the details, the stars? The stars are millions of years away from us. All of these things. Do you think they have the idea about that?
I mean, some knowledge.
No.
Not. I mean,
again, you're a historian. You should know better.
Well, I don't have omniscience. So the level of cosmology amongst pre-Islamic Arabian tribes is not one of the parts of history I've studied.
No, I'm not talking about the pre-Arabian. I'm talking about even Greek ones.
I mean, I know a bit about that. So they had some knowledge of the stars and of the planets, but they didn't have the same amount of knowledge as us.
Would they know that we know that recently that they discovered that those stars are millions of light years away from us? Yes. Yeah. And as well, we recently discovered that this universe is expanding again, which fact, no problem. And that's why, if this affirmed in the Quran, which was revealed 1400 years ago, which God has said, for example, that I will not make an oath by the positions of the stars, and it's a great oath, but you are not yet aware of it. So God is addressing those people at that time. You're not yet aware of the position of the stars. Yeah, people at that time used to think position means directions. That's the knowledge that they have. But now, when you look into the star in the night, after the light departs from the star, and until it hits your eyes, it takes millions of years. So at this moment, when you are seeing the star, that star is not there. That star became into a black hole, or can be moved from that because of the expansion of the universe. Meaning that God is saying in the Quran, basically when you are staring at the star in the night, you are seeing the position of the stars when the light departed from it millions of years ago. Who taught Muhammad, peace be upon him, the illiterate man who was unable to read and write 1400 years ago, who was known that he never lied, he was never a liar, he was trustworthy amongst everyone knows, and someone who was a respected figure, and yet even his enemies testify for him that he is a trustworthy person, and yet he will say this, and he said, this is not information I brought from myself, this information came to me from God. Now tell me,
could you repeat the exact words that were used in the Quran again?
The exact word, I will not make an oath by the positions of the stars. Yeah. And it's a great oath, but you are not yet aware of it. So God is saying here, when God is making an oath by something in the Quran, means something worthy to ponder, to think. There are deep meaning in it. Yeah.
May I ask what the context was of that quote? Of I will not make an oath by the position of the stars.
God is saying to the people, yeah. God is saying to the people, I will not make an oath. God making an oath by something in the Quran, that's something worthy for us to ponder. And we are not allowed to make an oath by other than God. And God is entitled to make an oath by one of His creation. Yeah. So He made an oath by certain things. One of the certain things is the positions of the stars. Positions of the stars. Precisely that word, مواقع النجوم, positions. And as well, in another verse, God, we have created the heavens above us. and we are expanding it. So again, 1400 years, God saying that we are expanding this universe. We are expanding the heavens. And the heavens for us, by the way, you know, everything that we see, all the sun, this is the heaven that we have.
Can you give me the exact words of that section talking about the expansion of the heavens?
Surah Al-Anbiya verse...
It's in Surah Dariyat. Surah 51, ayah...
1 second.
47. Yeah. Surah Dariyat. Surah Al-Anbiya apparently is the Big Bang. Apparently.
Surah 51, what was...
Here, Surah Al-Dariyat, verse number 47.
47, yeah.
Oh, it's one piece we separated.
Al-Dariyat.
Yeah, okay, and we destroyed the people Noah before. Indeed, they were a people defiantly disobedient, and the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander. Now, tell me something. Have you ever heard of the Oracle of Delphi in ancient Greece? Have you ever heard of the Oracle of Delphi?
No.
So this was a very important oracle in ancient Greece. So Delphi was one of the holiest sites in ancient Greece, and people would go to the oracle and ask, particularly if they were about to go to war, they would ask for a prediction of the future from the oracle, who was supposed to speak for Apollo, one of their gods. And the oracle has become sort of infamous for the fact that these predictions that are supposed to have been given, whether or not these stories are true is perhaps another question, but in these stories, the predictions that the oracle gives, they often come true, but they're often worded in a way that's sufficiently vague that multiple different options can then, if they happen, can then be interpreted as a fulfillment of the prophecy. So, for instance, a man is about to go to war.
By the way, but that's not the case here. Here, that's totally that we say. You are bringing different examples. We're not talking about certain things, and then God will predict certain things. If it happens, then it's true. If it didn't happen, not necessarily. We're not talking about this. We're talking about things which is proven that this is something that's true in real life, and that God affirms it 1400 years ago to an illiterate man who was unable to read and write.
Yes.
So those are totally different things.
No, but the reason why I mention it is that we are looking back more than 1,000 years later with all these discoveries, and we then look back at this, and for these then quite vague references to expanding the heavens can then be interpreted as, this is in reference to the fact that according to the Big Bang Theory, the universe was initially very small and then is
but again, I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory, but that's not my point.
Yeah, and we look at the other one was.
By the way, the Quran is not just these two examples. The Quran has many. For example, God has said, okay, let's say this is vague. Yeah, okay, let's agree. Maybe it's vague. Now the question is, do you think the people, they are aware what is happening deep in the bottom of the ocean 1400 years ago?
Depends what it is at the bottom of the ocean they're referring to, but they wouldn't have had detailed knowledge.
They wouldn't have details. Would they know that there is deep in the ocean, there is something there that's happening? Would they know or not?
Something happening.
Like I will tell you, for example, certain things, specific things. Is there a possibility?
I mean,
before going to the submarines and these things, is there a possibility?
It depends how specific you're talking.
I will come to the point of the specific ones. But my point is, do you think there is a probability?
Not that they would have had detailed and very accurate knowledge of a lot of specifics. General things that they would have been able to pass
good. That's fine.
I assume you have an example.
So God has said, those who are away from the guidance of God, like someone deep in the bottom of the ocean. Above him there is a wave. Above the wave there is another wave. Above the sea there is a cloud. Even if he took his hand out of his pocket, he will be unable to see it. Darkness upon darkness. And whoever God doesn't show him the guidance, which means the light, will be in misguidance. So here, God is describing certain type of darkness. Not normal darkness, certain type. We know when the sunlight comes, which we discovered again recently, and if it's a cloudy weather, that the 40% of the light will be reflected back. And then 60% will go through, roughly a rough number, a rough figure. Now, if there is people, everyone observe the surface waves of the sea. No problem. There are surface waves of the sea. What does the wave does to the light? It breaks the light. Yeah, and that's another scientific, which we'll call it fact. So the waves of the surface of the sea breaks the light. Everyone observed this, no problem. Now we recently discovered deep in the ocean there are other types of waves travels in a different direction than the surface waves, which is there. They are called the sea current, and the sea current as well travels by waves. As well, they found as well in certain oceans there is as well 2 layers of the sea. So there is above there is a one you could say the above one layer, and there is in the bottom there is another with different condensity, with different, for example, in terms of minerals, etc. And they found like another type, yeah, and that's internal waves inside in the ocean travels in another direction. Whatever remains from that light, it will be broken by the underneath, which is again discovered recently when they invented the submarine and they went inside and then they found something that is the waves. And deep in the ocean is absence of light, pitch dark.
I would argue that it's a fairly reasonable thing to assume that if you're at the bottom of a deep ocean and there's clouds above the
that
ocean,
is not the,
you
that
won't
that
get a
is
lot of light.
that is not the fact I'm talking about. I'm talking about the layers of the waves.
But again, I would say, so what I was saying before is that we are looking back after...
No, we're not looking, we're looking now, not back. We're looking now.
But can you let me finish?
And by the way, the Muslims believe this. They are under the ocean, there is another waves, deep there. They believe this, it exists, without them discovering it.
Right, so what I was trying to say.
So it's not looking back. Well, no. So this is a detailed argument. This is not assumption or could be right or wrong. This is a detailed one.
I've let you speak. Can you let me give my response? So when we in the 21st century are reading the Quran in this case, with all the sort of modern knowledge and all the discoveries, and if a person who believes that this is true, and believes this is divine revelation, is reading through these various passages, we can then see a fairly sort of vague reference.
That's not vague. What I told you is not vague. Please talk about that. That's not vague.
No, hold on.
2 layers of the waves is not vague.
Can you please let me finish? So a reference like, I will not make an oath upon the location of the stars, and we can then, you as a Muslim can then look back at it and say, oh, this is proof that he knew that.
I'm talking about the waves. Please, let's discuss the waves.
But I didn't get.
That's clear. That could be. You could say. I will say. I will give you the credit. That could be the position of the stars. Could be away, even though, which for us, this is an overwhelming, I will say. Let's use your own argument. Yeah, which is an overwhelming as well. Evidence is for us to believe this is true, because here we're talking about the position of the stars. Position, and God is not addressing what does it mean. He said to the people at that time, you are not yet aware of it yet. You people here, you are not yet aware, meaning there could be a time people will be aware of it. That is the miracle of it. Yeah? The miracle of it is saying addressing those people, they know what's the position, they know this direction here and there. But again, and he's saying to you, you are not yet aware of it here, what does he mean by that? And then later on, we have used another thing. But that's not the point. I'm talking about the layers of the waves, which is discovered, which is a recent discovery. So there is no way that you could say assumption. There is no single way that you say it's assumption.
Yeah. So in that quote, which again, if I can recall it exactly, it's like
cloud, surface waves, bottom waves.
Yes, a person who's at the bottom of the ocean, there will be a wave above him and a wave above that, and then the cloud.
A cloud.
So he will not have light.
Absence of light, yeah.
Yeah, there will be absence of light. Now, I would argue that if I'm an Arab living 1,000 years ago.
In the Arab desert, which is not aware of the ocean even.
Yeah. We can assume they would have known that the ocean exists, even if you're not living right next to it.
Yeah, but so
I would argue that as an Arab,
you could argue all the time. We could argue, but the issue is, what's our argument?
Muhammad mention anything about oceans?
What is the point? Someone, by the way.
But based on the quote you gave me, the point seems to be making use of a metaphor to explain why you should follow God and shouldn't be a disbeliever.
No, I didn't say that. Listen, what you said here, basically, you are thinking in a wrong way, in a wrong direction. I will tell you why. Because you think when you are arguing back, for example, and you see something which is clearly evidence, you try to find a loophole to say this is wrong. That's one thing. The other problem with you are thinking we are here to say to you, you have to accept Islam based on this argument. Who told you that? We're saying to you, for you just to open your eyes and mind, for there could be something true which you propose initially, which you to investigate, and then after that you come back. And I'm asking you, go to the Jeffrey Lang journey, see what he said, see his work, just study that, just think what he said, and study the Quran and come back. That's all. We have to go to pray now. We have to go to pray.
Oh, okay.
Nice talking to you.
Okay, so do you say Assalamu alaikum when you leave, or is that just when you say hello?
Yeah, whenever, anytime you can say.
You're Muhammad and
Abdullah.
That's me.
All right, look after yourself. Don't forget.
Take care, yeah? Have a good evening.
Yeah.
All right, look after yourself. Alfred. All right.
Oh, I thought it was Alfie.
Rayhan. All right, look after yourself, Alfred. Alfred.
It's not short by that much. It's like one.
Read the Quran, Alfred. Read the Quran and come back. Yeah. Have a good read about it. May Allah guide you.
May I ask where the footage goes?
I don't know.
Is this like a YouTube channel?
Yeah, different channels. Anyway, may Allah guide you, Alfred. All right. Bye. Brother, I need to go to pray. I don't know how to put.
We can just hold on to it. Huh? I was just saying we can hold on to it. I don't
know who's